Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on the Northern Lights and winter activities with Discover the World. My name's William Gray. I'm a travel writer and photographer, and I've worked with Discover the World for many years and been lucky enough to witness the Northern Lights on several trips with them. Now, tonight we're going to shine a light on one of the world's greatest natural spectacles. We'll discover what causes the Northern Lights, the best months to witness them, the best places to go and see them, where to put yourself right in the limelight. Now, I've been lucky enough to see the lights in Iceland, Finland, Sweden, Norway and Svalbard. And like many of you, I expect, I also saw them in the UK on that amazing night back on May the 10th, just over a month ago, when the aurora could be seen as far south as Cornwall and even more south than that. So I just wanted to start by showing you a couple of snaps I took on my phone that night, where I live in the Oxfordshire Cotswolds. Let me just share my screen with you. I couldn't believe what we were seeing, really. And I guess it all goes to prove what a particularly exciting time it is over the next couple of years to witness the Northern Lights. Charlotte, one of our Discover the World destination experts, was in Canada on that night in Waterton Lakes National Park, and she took that photo on the right there. Now, that's at a latitude similar to Paris. That's just how far south the aurora was being seen that night. And we also heard from friends in Australia and New Zealand who saw equally captivating displays of the Northern Lights, the Southern Lights, the aurora australis in the Southern Hemisphere. So what is going on? What is this all about? So I'm going to explain all that later. But just to say, if your smartphone picked up images like this here in the UK, can you imagine what it's like to see the aurora further north in the prime aurora viewing hotspots that we're going to tonight? Lapland, Iceland, the Yukon, Alaska, all those amazing places. Here's a photo I took in Iceland last September. It was an hour after sunset. If you look in the bottom left of the picture there, just see the last sort of hint of dusk there. But the aurora that came streaming over Hotel Rangau here in South Iceland was so strong, so vivid, that you could clearly see it with a naked eye. And that's the difference between this shot and the previous pictures. You could really see the rich green colors and the rippling effect, the texture, if you like, of the aurora as it pulsed and swayed overhead. Now, I've always tried to rely on expert help when planning aurora watching holidays. I think that's really, really important. And with 4 decades of aurora hunting under their belt this year, Discover the World really do have unrivaled experience and insider knowledge. They know all the best spots to go for watching the Northern Lights, and they've used this as the basis for putting together a really exciting and diverse portfolio of holidays. Everything from self-drives to escorted trips and independent short breaks. It's all backed up, every single holiday, by their 100% guarantee to give you complete peace of mind and look after you all the way. Now, as well as showing you all the best Northern Lights locations from the far north of Europe to Canada and Alaska, this webinar is all about helping you plan your holiday to get the most out of the experience. I'm going to highlight some great holidays that you can either book for the coming Northern Lights season from October to March, or book early for the following Northern Lights season starting in autumn 2025. Because, as you'll see later, from this winter onwards, the next few years, things are only going to get better. So, to answer your questions later this evening, I'm delighted to welcome our panel of experts who are going to meet in person later. First of all, on the left-hand side there, from Iceland, we have our friend Sævar Bragason. He's an award-winning astronomy educator and science communicator from Iceland. He's the author of 4 best-selling books on astronomy, stargazing, and space science, and he also hosts TV and radio shows on science and environmental issues. He also finds time, I don't know how, for running the Iceland at Night website, and also, very interestingly, the Eclipse 2026 website, because coming to Iceland in August 2026 is a total solar eclipse. Sævar can often be found at the fabulous observatory based at Hotel Rangau, which you just saw a picture of. But in this picture, wonderful picture of him in front of the Northern Lights, you can see him in front of the Arctic Henge in North Iceland. Next, then, we have Cathy in the middle there. It's not a very clear picture of Cathy, but you'll see her much more close up later when we introduce our panel. But Cathy is a true Iceland expert. She's worked as a guide for Discover the World for 35 years. She knows her stuff. Here she is in front of the beautiful Kirkjufell mountain in West Iceland. And that's where Cathy has been running Discover the World's amazing Orcas and Aurora winter tours since 2012. More on that later. Cathy is also the author of the Horizon Visitor's Guide to Iceland and a contributor to several other publications on travel to the land of fire and ice. And she's also traveled extensively across other countries in Nordic Europe and does lead guides, tours in Greenland as well, walking trips. So she's got extensive knowledge. And then last but not least, we have Eric there, who's Discover the World's Nordic team leader. So another expert on all the Northern Lights destinations. Eric's been visiting Scandinavia and hunting for the Northern Lights for over a decade. He says the key to finding incredible or viewing incredible Northern Lights is to never give up. One of Eric's best Northern Light sightings was in September when the skies were lit up for several hours, shooting stars racing through the aurora. Can you imagine that? A moment he says he'll never forget. Not surprised. Now, please do send in your questions using the chat box. We'll try and get through as many as possible. Thank you if you've already sent yours in. We've received a large number before the webinar started. And we'll try and get through as many of them as possible. But if I don't have time or the experts don't have time to answer your questions, don't worry, because we'll be sending a follow-up email that covers everything. And of course, you can also find out more information at discovertheworld.com, the website at the bottom of your screen there. And the best way of all, of course, is to pick up the phone and talk to one of the travel specialists like Eric, who know their stuff so well. Okay, so to give you an idea of the format of this webinar, I'll be spending the next 30 minutes or so delving into the magic of the Northern Lights, the best times to see them, the best places to go, and some great ideas for Northern Lights holidays. And we'll then go to our panel for half an hour of questions before wrapping things up at around 7:15. Right, to kick things off, I thought I'd play you a little 30-second video just to get you in the mood. Now, about 12 years ago, I think it was during a family holiday, family trip to Swedish Lapland. We drove dog sleds out to this remote cabin in the wilderness beside a frozen lake. And emerging outside after dinner, our heads spun upwards to find the aurora in full flow. These sinuous banners of light arching overhead, streaming from one horizon to the other, slowly changing to gently undulating curtains of lime and teal green. The display lasted for over an hour. It was my first full-blown Northern Lights moment, and I've been hooked ever since. Now, no one can guarantee that you'll see the aurora, but one thing is certain, I want you to take this away with you tonight, is that you'll have a fantastic time trying. This evening, you're going to find out how to boost your chances, but remember, witnessing the Northern Lights should always be viewed as a bonus, a kind of celestial cherry on top of a great big slice of Arctic winter adventure. You might spend the day snowmobiling across a frozen lake, through Narnia-like forests where the trees bow under the weight of snow. Or you might go mushing your own team of huskies where the only sound you can hear is the fizz of snow beneath the dog sleds and the panting huskies with their great big long tongues lolling out. Perhaps you'll go whale watching on the trail of the incredible winter spectacle of orcas hunting shoals of herring that overwinter along Iceland's west coast. Cathy on our panel will be telling us all about that later, I'm sure. Or maybe your idea of a perfect winter break in the north is a wilderness escape, relaxing in a cozy log cabin deep in the snow forests of the far north, like the Arctic retreat here in Sweden. First, though, before we delve into lots of those later, Let's look at the legends and the history and the science behind the Northern Lights. It's not only fascinating stuff, but it'll also make you a better aurora hunter. Now, according to Finnish legend, when the fox runs across the Arctic fells, it lights up the night sky with sparks flying from its tail. And in fact, the Finnish word for the Northern Lights literally means firefox. In many parts of Scandinavia, the Northern Lights were seen as a harbinger of good fortune. Fishermen would look up to the skies and see great shoals of herring shimmering in the heavens. Farmers would see psychedelic fields of swaying crops, and early Chinese legends associated the aurora with fire-breathing dragons. Inuit people used to live in fear of the lights, convinced they were evil spirits intent on a frenzy of beheading. Some Inuit stories even describe the aurora as human spirits playing football with the head of a walrus. Little topical thing as the Euros are on at the moment. At the very least, though, you should never wave, sing, or whistle at the Northern Lights. Many cultures believe that this would lure body-snatching demons down from the skies. Galileo Galilei witnessed the Northern Lights in 1621, and he was the first person that coined the phrase aurora borealis. Aurora for goddess of the dawn, and borealis for the Greek god of the north wind. But he thought it was caused by sunlight reflecting off the Earth's atmosphere. About a century later, British astronomer Edmund Halley thought that the lights were caused by luminous material seeping from cracks in the Earth's crust. And it wasn't until 1908 that the Norwegian Christian Birkeland proposed the first accurate theory, which was only proven in 1967 when a US satellite recorded strange disturbances each time it passed over the poles. This stunning video from NASA shows the aurora borealis viewed from the International Space Station. Just see how high up it is above the atmosphere. Quite an incredible video. So what is actually happening there? What causes the Northern Lights? Well, it all starts in the sun's core, where immense pressure and temperatures of 27 million degrees Fahrenheit fuel the process of nuclear fusion. Now, the energy generated by this creates large bubbles of hot plasma, a soup of intensely charged particles. These swell and circulate, so full of unrestrained energy that every now and again they erupt from the sun's surface, a coronal mass ejection. Flung out at speeds of 1,000 kilometers per second, these supercharged plasma clouds hurtle through space. Now, luckily for us, we have our trusty magnetic field. If the Earth lies in the path of this deadly solar wind, which usually takes 2 to 4 days to reach us, most of the plasma is deflected into space. But enough supercharged particles of electrons and protons sneak into our upper atmosphere, particularly at the poles, where magnetic fields are weaker, and start colliding with oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen. Now, following a collision, these elements store some of the energy or become excited. And the only way they can return to a stable state is by releasing photons, or in other words, producing light. Imagine this atomic process happening to billions of atoms stretching hundreds of kilometers into the atmosphere. That's what creates the gentle moving light of the aurora borealis. Sometimes it's delicate and subtle, strands of phosphorescent green flirting with the stars, or you might see the aurora turned up to max, like in that time lapse over Hotel Rangá in Iceland, almost like a glowing, swirling vortex overhead. Now, the different colors, they depend on two main factors: what type of element is reacting with the solar particles and what altitude that activity is taking place. Now, if you're watching a green aurora, like in this shot of West Iceland, that's light or photons being given off by oxygen around 100 to 150 kilometers up. It becomes red if the action is taking place higher, at around 200 or 250 kilometers. If you see blue, pink, or violet colors, that's from nitrogen molecules, probably. I photographed this aurora in Svalbard during the polar night, where it was 24-hour darkness and minus 35 degrees. Now, pinky crimson color, is from hydrogen, usually lower in the atmosphere. So you sometimes see this at the bottom of a green band. But what about the different shapes? Now, as I mentioned earlier, the aurora is essentially plasma, an electrically charged gas. So it's constantly changing, unpredictable, erratic. And there's all kinds of fiendish physics to explain the various forms and shapes. And I'll leave that to Sævar, our expert scientist on the panel tonight, to explain that if he feels like it later. But just to put it simply, a lot depends on where the activity is happening relative to where you're standing. An aurora viewed from a distance, for example, might look like giant swaying curtains. But were you to look up at the same aurora from directly below, it might take on the appearance of a corona, rays of light converging to a point. Same aurora, different perspective. As I say, that's simplifying it, but just gives you an idea of the shapes. Now, of course, you don't need to know or even care about all the science, really. If for you the aurora is simply pure magic, that's absolutely fine. But if you're a serious aurora hunter, it really does help to understand what's fueling this phenomenon. Did you know that roughly every 11 years, the sun's magnetic poles flip? Here on Earth, that would be like the North and South poles swapping places every decade. Total mayhem. Now, the so-called solar cycle changes the sun's mood dramatically, like a fire being stoked. When it's quiet, the sun is at solar minimum. But when it's particularly active during solar maximum, it's blazing with flares, solar eruptions, and those coronal mass ejections I mentioned earlier. Now, we're now in the latest phase of a solar maximum, which is why we're getting some impressive aurora displays. It's called solar cycle 25, and it means the sun is ramping up activity over the next few years and flinging out much more of that supercharged plasma into space, generating more geomagnetic storms here on Earth, and sometimes really powerful ones, like the one we witnessed back in May. Now, it's a little bit more complex than that. And again, Sævar can explain a bit more about the latest research into when the aurora is at its optimum during a solar maximum period. And I was chatting to him earlier, and he's actually saying that the solar maximum, the actual peak of solar maximum, is expected to occur around October 2024 this year. And it's actually in the couple of years following that you sometimes or quite often get the most intense and prolonged aurora displays lasting several nights. So this winter and then the 2025-2026 winters, possibly, according to the statistics anyway, could well be the peak winters of this particular solar cycle. We'd be interested in hearing more from Sævar about that later. So it's prime time for Northern Lights watching. Now, the aurora can be visible on a clear night any time between September and March, and sometimes as early as August and as late as mid-April. It takes an exceptional event to see them in May. The equinox months of September and March often have some of the best activity, while the midwinter months, obviously from December to February, offer the longest hours of darkness, the longest nights. So it's worth taking a look as soon as it gets dark if you have clear skies above. Now, woolly hats and gloves on, let's head to the far north to discover the best places to see the aurora borealis. Now, we're heading to a region under the so-called auroral oval, a donut-shaped ring around the Earth where the northern lights are most frequent and most spectacular. Now, when scientists discovered the northern lights and wanted to forecast them and monitor them, they came up with this, the KP index. The most common activity is usually at KP1 to KP3. So looking at this map, you can immediately see just how important it is to focus your northern lights watching activity on Swedish and Finnish Lapland, northern Norway and Iceland, and also Svalbard, parts of Greenland, Canada, and Alaska. And that's really why Discover the World specializes in these areas for their Northern Lights holidays. It's where you'll have the best chances of seeing them. Even when it's just an average aurora forecast, the lights will appear there. But the further south you go, it takes a much rarer, more powerful event to push the aurora down into southern latitudes. Let me give you an example from the Space Weather live website of of how the KP index helps us to forecast, predict when northern lights might occur. Here's a view, a photograph using a sun telescope of the surface of the sun, enhanced to show a solar flare activity. And you can see on the right-hand picture, a little red circle pinpointing a solar flare down there on the sun. And the left-hand picture shows a close-up of that solar flare. And you can almost see that coronal mass ejection, the swirls of supercharged plasma being hurled into space. Now, if that flare was aimed straight at Earth, it might trigger a KP forecast that looks like this. So there in the red bars, KP level 5, that's the point when the solar wind carrying that supercharged plasma reaches Earth around midnight, roughly a couple of days after that solar flare erupted from the sun's surface, promising conditions for good northern lights. Okay, let's take a closer look at Sweden. Now, you travel to the Arctic Circle, deep in Swedish Lapland, and you'll experience proper winters with snow cover from October to May. It gets cold enough even for the Gulf of Bothnia, just below Luleå there, to freeze over. And from early December to January, the sun doesn't rise, and you can experience that beautiful, strange blue twilight of the polar night. Really magical experience. Now, favorite places for watching the northern lights in Sweden include Abisko National Park, the Ice Hotel, and Luleå. Now, when it comes to northern lights potential, Abisko National Park has pretty much everything going for it. Not only is it right in the middle of the auroral oval, but it also lies in a rain shadow. And where there's less rain, there are fewer clouds. Remember, the aurora could be blazing at full blast overhead, but if it's overcast, the best you'll see is a sort of a green glow. Abisko has more nights of clear skies than anywhere else in Europe. And being a national park means there's very little artificial light pollution. You'll hear me using that phrase a lot this evening. It is so important. Yeah, go into a city break to watch the northern lights. You're going to be competing with all the artificial light, the fluorescent lights, the street lights, and it'll take an incredibly strong aurora display for you to see it over that artificial light pollution. So get away from the cities, get into the wilderness. You'll find that all the places you stay with Discover the World are in these sorts of places where light pollution is at a minimum. This is the Aurora Sky Station. Puts you in a perfect spot for seeing the northern lights. This time lapse was shot by Peter Rosen, a superb northern lights photographer, and it shows the aurora, which is why I quite like it, only slightly speeded up. It's not a very rapid time lapse, and it gives more of an atmospheric, more authentic feel to what it can be like to witness the aurora. The last time I was here, I spent an hour or two lying on my back in the snow just beyond this Aurora Sky Station, wrapped up in warm polar suits and boots, all provided for you on all these holidays. All the thick sort of polar gear is given to you. And we took the chairlift up to the top of the mountain. I thought it was going to be a no-show. Then this happened. The aurora erupted from behind the mountain. It's almost like green ink being poured into the sky. It was so strong that even the full moon, which you can see to the left there, had little effect on its brightness. The lights then drifted above us in huge pulsating waves until they filled half the sky. Great location, no light pollution. Abisko demonstrates perfectly why it's so consistently good for northern lights watching. Now, about an hour's drive from Abisko, the Ice Hotel is another aurora hotspot. What an incredible place this is. It's forged using thousands of tons of ice from the frozen River Torne. Seasonal Ice Hotel is reborn each winter in the village of Jukkasjärvi. Sculptors transform its interior into amazing art suites and fabulous chapel, ice bar, different rooms. It really is incredible. And then the seasonal ice hotel melts back into the river during spring. There's also a permanent ice hotel there, the Ice Hotel 365, which uses solar power to keep its interior freezing so that the ice suites remain all through the summer, so you can experience them year round. You can see the Ice Hotel's amazing location here. There's the frozen river on the right of the screen. There's the Ice Hotel there, 200 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, beside the frozen river, where these huge blocks of ice are harvested each winter. And then expert sculptors craft them into all these incredible art suites like this, from the raw river ice to incredible rooms like that. handcrafted sweets to the ice bar where you can sip cocktails from ice glasses in the rocks. I could easily spend the whole presentation looking at the ingenious designs of the various art suites, but I picked just one recent one here to give you an idea of the creativity that goes into them. Now, the base of the bed is solid ice. Then there's a thick mattress on top of that, and then reindeer furs. Then you're given thermal sleeping bags. And because it's so peaceful inside the ice hotel, I've slept in it a couple of times, and you do really get a good night's sleep. It's kept at a constant -4, -5 degrees, I think. But it's just really cozy and really peaceful. Discover the World is the Ice Hotel's leading worldwide partner, and their signature ice hotel break here includes one night sleeping on ice inside the ice hotel, and another 2 in warm accommodation in lovely stylish cabins on the ice hotel complex. And a huge range of activities can also be pre-booked, from ice sculpting classes, which are great fun, and sauna rituals to husky sledding and snowmobiling. Now, the Ice Hotel and Abisko National Park, there's the Aurora Sky Station again, are perfect partners, being so close to each other, just an hour's transfer or so. And you can combine them quite nicely in a 3-night break here, which includes a night of Northern Light spotting at the Sky Station. Now, heading southeast across Swedish Lapland, we reach the Gulf of Bothnia, a frozen sea during winter, where you can stay in cabins or lodges on ice-locked islands. From the gateway city of Luleå, you can venture inland for a Northern Lights escape at fabulous Swedish accommodation like the Arctic Retreat, the Arctic Bath, and the Tree Hotel, which you might have heard of. But this is Brandon Lodge, another one of our favourites, tucked into the shoreline of the frozen sea that you can see there in the background and the foreground. Like all these places, it's renowned for its clear skies, big horizons, and lack of light pollution. And here's the Northern Lights in full flow again over the main building. It's a lovely place, actually. It reminds me of a really nice sort of ski villa. You'll walk inside and there's a really smart lounge with comfy sofas, open fire roaring. Then there's a snug to one side and a lovely bar. It's a really lovely place just to relax and warm up after you've been outside looking at the aurora. Here's a 4-night break at Brandon Lodge. It includes snowmobiling safari, a dog sled adventure, and a Northern Lights tour. But there are loads of optional activities that you can embellish your trip with. You just chat to your Discover the World specialist and they'll tailor-make the trip for you. So you can add on ice fishing, Nordic winter skills course, snowshoe walks. Many of these lodges just have snowshoes and cross-country skis and sleds for the kids for you to use whenever you've got a free 5 minutes. A couple of other holidays I just wanted to mention in Sweden. This Santa adventure in Swedish Lapland is also great fun if you've got younger children. It's an action-packed family break with loads of included activities. So you get snowmobiling, husky sledding, and of course, a private visit to see the main man himself, Santa in his wilderness cabin. Perhaps more of a grown-up festive break. This new holiday to Haparanda in northern Sweden. It's right on the border with Finnish Lapland and includes a stay in the historic Stad Hotel with options to venture into the wilds by snowmobile, dog sled and snowshoe. Okay, let's look at Finland next. Now, Finland, I think, is perfect if you're dreaming of a log cabin, you know, really authentic Lapland break. A log cabin, snow dumped all over the roof, stepping outside, the forests are thick with the snow, you've got a crackling fire inside, and it's tucked away in the wilderness and the forest. It really is an authentic Arctic experience where you can explore the pristine wilderness by snowshoe, snowmobile, and husky sled. Untainted by light pollution, the aurora borealis shines brightly here. Sometimes all you need to do is just step outside your cabin and look up. Now, there are plenty of exciting destinations to choose from. Discover the World have picked the best log cabins and lodge retreats. Many of them have private saunas, and several of the holiday options include a range of fully inclusive activities, which makes the Finnish Lapland holidays particularly good value and really good if you want to budget specifically and know exactly what you paid for your holiday and what you're going to get as far as meals and activities is concerned. This is Nelim Wilderness Hotel, 350 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. I was here just over a year ago. It's a fabulous place. Fantastic journey to get there and a great location, snuggled into trees overlooking this huge frozen Lake Inari, right up in northern Finland. You've heard it before this evening, but far from any artificial light pollution, Nelim has those all-important dark night skies for excellent northern lights potential. And it even has its own aurora camp out on the frozen lake. We'll take a trip there as part of a package of activities included in this 3 or 7 night all-inclusive holiday. Husky sledding, snowshoeing, snowmobiling, all included. And you can choose to stay in a log cabin with a private sauna, or perhaps go for an aurora bubble, a glass-roofed little cabin for aurora gazing from the comfort of your bed. That's highly recommended for one of your nights at least. Nelim's sister property, Inari Wilderness Hotel, also has a wonderful location. This drone shot shows the vast Lake Inari stretching out into the distance. And I tell you, hopping on a snowmobile and going right across that lake when you're just surrounded by whiteness is just absolutely fantastic. You just feel you're miles from anywhere. And, you know, if you do it in the evening, aurora hunting, it's even more magical. There's another property in this portfolio. We've looked at Nelim, we've looked at Inari Wilderness Hotel. This is another one, I can never pronounce it, Jutua Wilderness Hotel. And that has more of an intimate feel to it. It's located next to a river, and it has a fantastic restaurant. I was there a couple of years ago, and the food really is excellent. All local produce, really creative and superb service, with the waiters telling you all about the provenance of the food and how it's made. And you know, if you're a foodie and you want the combination of that element with your winter activity, adventure break, and the Northern Lights, that's the one to go for, at least for part of your trip. Now, Finland's heaviest snowfall blankets Siouti National Park, and over 2 meters of the white stuff every year. Fir trees, as you can see in this picture, literally stoop under the weight of it. And the forest is pervaded by an almost surreal sense of stillness and silence. It really does feel like you're in the Arctic wilderness. This is the resort of Siouti, and it's in a prime spot to soak up that atmosphere and witness the Northern Lights. At nearby Ranua, you can stay in a glass igloo or a family villa shown here. These sleep up to 6 people, so great for families. You want to go with friends, another couple of people. And as well as winter activities, there's the added attraction of the Ranua Wildlife Park, where you can spot local species in huge enclosures like lynx, wolves, and moose. A great choice for a Christmas or New Year break, the Star Arctic Hotel has panoramic views across the Saraselka Fells. It's one of the best places to see these, excuse me, these snow forests with the very thick snow on them. It's an all-inclusive break, including a choice of daily activities such as snowmobiling, husky sledding, wilderness dining, or a private sauna ritual. Now, each of the Northern Lights destinations we're looking at this evening has its own special appeal. And we've looked at Sweden and Finland, where you get immersed in the fells and the forests and the frozen lakes. And Norway, I think, has something a little bit different to offer, because it's got the Arctic coast mixed into it as well, which gives you another sort of dimension for viewing the Northern Lights. So you can just imagine whale watching in the fjords around the Arctic city of Tromsø, or keeping a lookout for the Northern Lights on the deck of one of the local Hurtigruten ferries as it noses its way up through the fjords during the winter. Discover the World's Norwegian winter holidays also feature the spectacular islands of Senja and Lofoten, and also the far-flung Svalbard archipelago, which you can't see on this map because it's way up towards the North Pole, about halfway, in fact, between the top of Norway and the North Pole. Let's look at Tromsø, first of all. It's about everything seems to be about 350 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, but like Nelim, Tromsø is 350 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, and it offers a fascinating contrast to the wilderness areas of the far north. You could be staying at a harborside hotel, going on a whale watching tour, aurora hunting tours into the mountains nearby, and then in the evenings and other times of the day, you could be chilling in one of the city's cafes or visiting one of its galleries. Other highlights of this so-called Paris of the North include the wonderful Arctic Cathedral. You can just see it at the right side of the bridge there, that pointy structure. And there's also a fabulous polar museum, which follows in the footsteps of Norwegian explorers like Amundsen. The best of both worlds, though, I really recommend you combine Tromsø, the city culture, with Northern Lights potential at this place. This is called Malangen Resort. It's 90 minutes transfer to the south of the city, and you can enjoy these amazing views from one of its cabins, perched on stilts right at the edge of a beautiful fjord. At the back of the resort, just walk up a little hill and they've got their own aurora lookout, where local guides shed light on the mysteries of the Northern Lights while you scan the heavens and sip a hot chocolate around a fire. It's quite an experience. Now, getting to these far-flung places is easier than you might think, thanks to a range of new direct flights from various UK airports that are starting this winter. Now, you just need to chat to a Discover the World specialist and they'll be able to recommend the best flights for your holiday. But new this winter are direct flights between Tromsø and Heathrow, Gatwick, Manchester and Bristol. So that will get you straight to northern Norway without having to fly to Oslo, change planes and then go up to Tromsø. And to reach Finnish Lapland, there are new direct flights between London Gatwick and both Rovaniemi on the Arctic Circle there and Ivalo, which is your gateway to those three places we looked at earlier, Nellin, Inari and Duota. And to get to Iceland, over there on the left, as well as a wide range of existing flights, there's a new EasyJet service starting this winter from Birmingham to Keflavik, which is the main international airport, and Manchester to Akureyri, which is Iceland's second city up in the north. Just back to Norway briefly then. Now, in a region renowned for its dramatic landscapes, the island of Senja, shown here to the southwest of Tromsø, really stands out. This image taken in March shows Senja's sawtooth mountains and deep fjords crowned by a dazzling display of the Northern Lights. Now, definitely look out for Discover the World's new winter packages here. They'll be live soon. They're not on the website just yet, I don't think, but they will be live soon. So do get in touch to register your interest and secure a place. Another great location along Norway's coast is the Lofoten Islands. They're an ideal choice for a winter self-drive, which might surprise a lot of people, self-drive in winter, but actually it's really possible and a fantastic way to explore them, touring through this breathtaking archipelago, exploring its Viking heritage, whale watching, and of course, keeping a lookout for the Northern Lights. If you're looking for something a bit different, however, how about a winter voyage? Discover the World offer everything from an overnight Northern Lights and whale watching safari from Tromsø to longer voyages aboard the new fleet of Havila ships, taking you on environmentally friendly voyages along the Norwegian coast. Now, there's a choice of 7 or 8 night voyages between Bergen and the southern fjords, all the way on the Norwegian coast, right up to Kirkenes, which is round the top of Norway and almost into Russia, but not too near Russia. All is a 14-day itinerary, Bergen to Bergen, after sailing all the way up to the North Cape and back. So just imagine standing on the deck of one of these ships, enjoying near silent, battery-powered cruising while the Northern Lights dances overhead. Now, if you don't want to fly at all on your holiday, how about an epic 3-week train journey? Discover the World have this as well. It's called the Arctic Rail Odyssey, and the itinerary is just incredible. This is definitely on my wish list. Here you go. This is what you do. You hop on a train in London, and they can, if you live somewhere else in the country, Discover the World can arrange for you to get down there, stay in a hotel overnight, so you can pick up the train at St. Pancras the following morning. And then you travel across Belgium and Germany. And after visiting Copenhagen, Gothenburg, Oslo, Andalsnes, and Trondheim, you continue north, crossing the Arctic Circle to reach Bodo on this train, the Nordland, just crossing the landmark there for the Arctic Circle. Then a ferry takes you from Bodo to the Lofoten Islands. You then travel through the Lofoten Islands by coach, pick up the train in Narvik, travel by train to Abisko, stay at the Ice Hotel before crossing Swedish Lapland by train to Luleå, and then loop back home via Stockholm, Malmo, and Hamburg through back to London. How about that for 3 weeks? And that just can happen just at the start of the Northern Lights season, so you can travel there and stand a chance of witnessing the Northern Lights. Now, just to finish off with Norway, I guess Norway's scenery reaches a crescendo, really, of snowy peaks and ice-locked fjords in Svalbard, right up there in the north, where midwinter heralds the polar night. This mesmerizing 24-hour twilight, where you can witness the Northern Lights flickering over mountains like these. I took this picture just after lunchtime, so middle of the day, just beyond Longyearbyen, the world's northernmost town. So 24-hour darkness, Northern Lights can happen anytime. Fly here from Tromsø, and as I say, you're halfway to the North Pole. And Longyearbyen is not only a fascinating place to visit in its own right, the amazing rich history of exploration, the mining heritage is fascinating. You can explore an old mine with some amazing guides, and you get a unique insight into life in the high Arctic, how they provide their food. They've even got a university there, a wide range of restaurants and hotels. It's a real eye-opener. But it's also a hub for an incredible range of adventures, ranging from glacier tours to snowmobile safaris in Advent Valley. Okay, so from the land of the polar night to the land of fire and ice, the next destination, the penultimate one, I'd like to take you to is Iceland, another superb place for Northern Lights watching. Now, Discover the World's small group escorted tours take you in search of everything from auroras and orcas to waterfalls and ice caves. Although at present, the volcano on the Reykjanes Peninsula is not something tourists can safely visit, sightseeing flights are still possible, and we've had many guests taking helicopter flights over the eruption. If you are considering Iceland, we'll look at this in more detail later in our Q&A. It is open and safe to visit. The eruptions have been very localized, and aside from the temporary sporadic closure of the Blue Lagoon, they pose no disruption to Discover the World holidays or flying in and out of Iceland out of Keflavik Airport. Discover the World have also recently launched a volcano disruption charter, which offers added reassurance. So if the unlikely event that your holiday plans are disrupted by any volcanic activity, they'll be right on the case and reroute you and keep your holiday going. So if you want to travel independently, a winter self-drive in Iceland is easier than you might think, especially on the south and west coast where the Gulf Stream helps to keep the climate mild. Drive 90 minutes or so north or east from Reykjavik, and you'll find yourself in the heart of rural Iceland, where night skies are big, dark, and free from light pollution. And two of our favorite hotels, Rangá and Húsafell, are located here. Both offer an aurora wake-up service, so you can just register your interest in seeing the Northern Lights with reception, go to sleep, and if the Northern Lights appear at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, you'll get a phone call to your room, and quickly pop on your polar jacket and nip outside, and you won't miss the Northern Lights. You could even slip into one of Rangá's outdoor hot tubs and lie back and soak up the cosmic light show from one of those. Hotel Rangá also has its own state-of-the-art observatory. I'm sure Sævar on our panel tonight will tell you more about it later. He's often working there. At both properties, you can fill your days and nights with activities such as four-wheel drive super jeep safaris, snowmobiling, glacier tours, scenic flights, and great food is also a big theme of both these properties. The stylish log cabin Hotel Rangá with its intimate and friendly atmosphere, and Hotel Húsafell here, which is sleek, but more contemporary, perfect bolt hole from which to explore the natural wonders of West Iceland, where you have everything from ice caps to the rugged Snæfellsnes Peninsula and Cathy's wonderful orcas. Here they are. Excuse me. This is the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, looking back from one of the whale-watching boats, dominated by a snow-capped volcano at its tip. The Snæfellsnes is also notched with bays and fjords and snow-capped mountains. And in these bays, this is where these huge shoals of herring overwinter during the winter months. And Discover the World's Orcas and Aurora holiday combines whale watching trips with fabulous opportunities for witnessing the Northern Lights, led by Cathy Harlow. As the world's leading Iceland specialist, Discover the World not only have a wide range of holidays to choose from, but they can also tailor-make your holiday to suit your time frame, your budget, and your interests. So if you're seeing something on the website you like the look of, but doesn't quite fit what you're looking for, you see maybe 2 or 3 holidays, you think, I want a bit of that, and a bit of that. You just need to chat to the Discover the World specialists, and they can tailor-make something for you. The Northern Lights Special is their signature small group escorted winter holiday, including Hotel Rangá here, the natural wonders of the Golden Circle, which you might have heard about, a visit to Reykjavik and the Blue Lagoon. Interestingly, there's also a new solo travelers special departure on 27th of February 2025, so look out for that. The Northern Lights Glaciers and Waterfalls tour takes you on a self-drive odyssey to Hotel Húsafell and Iceland's Wild West, and I'm delighted to be accompanying a brand new photography tour along Iceland's spectacular south coast next year. This will be focusing on incredible landscapes, we'll be photographing seascapes, and of course, taking every opportunity to capture the Northern Lights with our cameras. These are all photos I took last September during a recce to the area. It'll be a small group, lots of one-to-one tuition, and a chance to capture stunning natural wonders with your camera. Places are limited though, so please do get in touch soon to reserve your place on the 2 departures next September and October. There's also the new week-long West Fjords Northern Lights Secrets escorted tour, taking you to the remote northwest of Iceland with its fantastic fjords, sea cliffs and waterfalls. And a little south of the West Fjords is a new short break based at Hotel Boudier on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. Heading slightly further afield, Discover the World's amazing portfolio of polar voyages includes a 10-night expedition cruise from North Iceland to the east coast of Greenland. And here you'll find the world's longest fjord, Scoresby Sand, cutting into Greenland for 350 kilometers. The scenery is mind-blowing. And because this trip includes a September departure, you have the added possibility, imagine, of seeing the Northern Lights above scenery like this. Finally, then, let's head right across the Atlantic to Canada, where the dark skies and remote wilderness of the Yukon are a prime spot in North America for Northern Lights watching. On this new adventure, you'll fly from Vancouver up to Whitehorse before being transferred to the Northern Lights Resort and Spa, with its amazing mountain views and wildlife, as well as a guided aurora viewing expedition and some dog sledding or snowmobiling, which is included. You'll also get a tour of the Yukon Wildlife Reserve. The Southern Lakes Resort is another great location in the Yukon for aurora hunting and winter activities and finding out about the gold rush years as well. And how about this for one last Northern Lights holiday to add to your wish list? Alaska, to witness the start of the legendary Iditarod dog sled race, a grueling mush across Alaska. The record for the 1,000-mile race is just over 8 days. You'll be there for the ceremonial start in Anchorage and the official start in Willow, as well as exploring some other parts of Alaska during your trip. Phew, well, I told you it was a great selection of holidays. I hope that's given you plenty of inspiration and ideas for your next Northern Lights adventure. Remember, wherever and whenever you choose to travel, the specialists at Discover the World are ready to help you plan your holiday, whether it's one from their website or a tailor-made option. It's whether you want to go aurora hunting on a self-drive on the coast of Iceland, perhaps you want to go husky sledging through the wild forests of Finland, or spend a night in one of the Ice Hotel's art suites, or escape to a wilderness lodge in the Yukon. Right, well, I'm now delighted to welcome back our panel of experts. I'm hoping I'm going to switch back their videos so you can see them live. Cathy, Sævar, and Eric. There's Cathy. Hi, Cathy, and her friendly orca there. Hi, Eric, with his wonderful aurora. And there's Sævar in Iceland with his wonderful stars behind him. Many thanks once again for joining us. And many thanks to all of you watching who have sent in your questions, both during the show tonight and also in advance. We've had lots asking about what's the best country or region for seeing the Northern Lights. So I think we should start by asking each of our panelists, where the most memorable sighting was, the one place that really stood out for you and where they're aiming to try next, maybe. So Cathy, perhaps we could start with you.
Yes, indeed. That's a difficult one because I've been very lucky like you and have seen Northern Lights in many different places. I think it has to be Iceland, though. And I think one of the most memorable Northern Lights experiences I had was overlooking the fjord at Grundarfjörður, actually directly behind the hotel, where they had a hot tub. And so the guests and myself, we were relaxing in the hot tub. And then suddenly the Northern Lights just burst in that starburst corona formation above us. And I guess all that would have made that more splendid would have been if the orcas had suddenly showed up. But that was unlikely as it was dark. But yeah, I would say Iceland. Greenland has also been amazing. And the lack of light pollution in Greenland is just astonishing. Norway also, because you can easily get away from the light pollution there. And there's been some extraordinary auroral displays that we've seen on trips right behind our hotel, overlooking the wonderful seascape.
That sounds amazing. Thanks, Cathy. How about you, Sævar? What's been your best experience?
Yeah, I've had so many wonderful experiences, but maybe recently, and the most memorable was on September 12th last year. Exactly when we took this image of me under the Arctic Henge in the northeastern part of Iceland. So that particular night, we also had this amazing fireball, this once in a lifetime fireball that lit up the whole landscape. And we were there on a tour with a group of photographers. And later in the night, we had this burst of beautiful, colorful, dynamic auroras that just lit up the whole landscape as well. We had this aurora crown. All these colors were vivid, very easily seen. And it's the first time I've seen people, when they went back to the hotel, completely speechless of what they had experienced that night. So we saw auroras each night afterwards, for a few days afterwards. And people were actually starting to become bored with them because they had such an amazing experience on that one particular night. So September 12th last year, definitely.
There you go, Eric. Fireballs, beat that.
I can't beat that, unfortunately. You mentioned in the introduction, Will, Iceland for me in September. Again, that was something I'll never forget. But more recently, going to Finland in December. It's a little bit different to Iceland, where there's a lot more snow. It's a lot more about the snowmobiling, the husky sledding. But we took some snowmobiles out in the evening to a frozen lake, stopped, and they appeared just like that. So that's one of my more recent successes.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Yeah, those snowmobiling trips out to see the lights are so exciting because the sense of anticipation and the adrenaline thrill of the ride is brilliant. All comes together. Thanks, everyone. Cathy, we talked about, and you can see behind you, about your wonderful orca trips and that lovely orca giving you a little hug behind you there. So we can't go much further without asking you more about it. I've been lucky enough to do one of these trips with you, and I will never forget being surrounded by about 20 orcas on a beautiful sunny day with the snow-capped mountains in the distance. And then we also saw them swim past the end of the harbour wall when we were back on land as well, as they were hunting herring. It is just the most incredible natural spectacle. So tell us what we can look forward to doing on one of those trips.
Well, whale watching is just a part of the tour. We have 2 whale watch trips by boat. They're about 3 hours each. Sometimes if we have to go further out to sea to find the orcas, then they can maybe stretch a bit more into 3.5 or even 4 hours. The great thing is that we have a degree of flexibility. And if we're not able to go out on one day because the weather's not playing ball, then it's fairly easy for us to reschedule for the following day. We always factor in that tour a day of sightseeing, and the Snaffles Nest Peninsula has got the most amazing volcanic landscapes and wonderful coastal features as well. And so with a full day of sightseeing and then 2 half-day whale watch trips, there's not much time for very much else, but of course the evenings for Northern Lights viewing. And we try to make sure that we don't have necessarily an official wake-up call at the hotels. We tend to use small and intimate hotels, and I am the wake-up call, if you like. So I keep my eyes open, going out every 10-15 minutes to check what's happening. We have forecasts, but and so I'm on the case as long into the night as I can stay awake, and then I'll give people a knock on the door if I see something. And of course, you have to be ready. So I tell people, don't worry about getting dressed out of your pajamas and into your clothes. Just put on your jacket and your over trousers and get out there, because sometimes the aurora can go on for hours, but sometimes it just lasts for 5 minutes. And so you have to, respond immediately to any wake-up call and just get out there and get looking. And we try to always choose accommodation where there are dark places to view the aurora nearby. and then you can pop back into the hotel and have a hot drink if you start feeling cold. So it's it's full on that trip. I always say to people, well, you've got the rest of your life to sleep, but this might be your one and only chance to see the aurora, so take it.
Absolutely, it is a great trip, and you describe it brilliantly. And one of the other things I liked about that trip, Cathy, is because you're there and you sort of add that extra dimension to the trip with your expert knowledge of not only the whales and whale watching and the wildlife, but also the Northern Lights and how to photograph them, adding the tips for people who want to photograph them, for example. So whereas a self-drive, you're just on your own, having a guide makes a big difference, I think, and it adds an extra element to the trip if that's what you're looking for. Thanks, Cathy. Sævar, if I come to you next, you do a lot of stargazing and aurora viewing at the observatory at Hotel Rangau in Iceland, which we saw. Can you tell us a bit more about the observatory and why it's such a special place, and what else you can see in the night sky through your telescopes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the origin of the observatory can be traced back to 2014. It opened up then, so we're celebrating 10-year anniversary this year. But the idea, first and foremost, was that the owner of the hotel, he noticed that people had to sometimes wait for the auroras to show up, and on some nights they just didn't even appear. But there were so many other things interesting to see up there. So he called me and asked me if I wanted to take part in building this observatory. I said, of course, it's a fantastic idea, and it's been very successful so far. We have 2 telescopes in there, 2 very high quality telescopes, and we have a roof that I just push a button and the roof comes rolling off. And up there we can, of course, look at the planets, Jupiter, Saturn, the moon, obviously, through the telescopes, or some other deep sky objects that are interesting to look at, all while we wait for the Northern Lights to make an appearance. And if they do show up, then people usually either stay indoors because they're sheltered from the wind, despite the roof being off, or people just venture outside with their cameras and take pictures and then come back to the observatory to see something else interesting in the sky.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sævar. Yeah, it's quite an amazing setup there, isn't it? It's a pretty serious telescope as well, isn't it? It's a proper stargazing telescope. So you can
exactly. The owner made this one silly mistake of handing me a blank check. Just choose whatever you want. So
very nice too. Thanks, Sævar. Eric, I'm going to come to you next. We've had lots of questions asking about the best time to see the Northern Lights, which hopefully we've covered a fair bit in the talk. But some viewers are sort of coming down to a few more specifics. We've had one, when is the best time for the Northern Lights and the best snow conditions? And where would you go for that, do you think?
Personally, I really like February or March in Finland or Sweden. Reason being is you get a little bit more daylight during that time compared to December or January. Each month has its benefits. So December and January is good because it's darker for longer. So it widens that opportunity to see the lights. But February and March, the weather can be a bit more stable. So as well as having a bit more daylight, if you're out on daytime activities, you get to enjoy the scenery a little bit more. And the weather can be a bit more stable, more clear skies. So I would go for February or March in Finland or Sweden is my favourite.
Okay, thanks. Good tip. Thanks, Eric. Sævar, I'm just going back to you. I've had a question about times of the year. I mentioned the equinoxes. Perhaps you could explain why the equinoxes are particularly good. And are there any other specific times of year which also boost your chances of seeing the Northern Lights?
Yes. So we know from decades of observations that the months around the equinoxes, so September, October, and March, April, are often a very good bet to see the Northern Lights. And we're not exactly sure why, but it has something probably to do with the fact that the Earth is, the Earth is tilted, as you probably, most of you know. And at the time around the equinoxes, it seems like the orientation of the magnetic field of the Earth compared to the magnetic field of the solar wind, they just have an easier time to align. And that allows the particles to more easily flow in towards the poles, which causes the Northern Lights then in the end. So that's usually the best time because of that, mostly. We also know that it all boils down to the sun, so how active it is and how active it is in sending a solar wind. So if you have some solar wind, we see auroras pretty much every night anyway, despite it being like December or January or something like that. But of course, in the summer, it's bright 24/7. So we don't see any auroras then. It's surprising how many people actually travel here in the summer months to see the northern lights, and then are caught by complete surprise that they don't see anything because the nights are bright. But yes, September, October is often a very good bet, but also April, February, and even late August can also be very good. October too.
Yeah, I think the earliest I've seen them in Iceland is the very end of August.
Yes, yeah. So
sorry, go on.
It kind of gets dark around the middle of August, or dark enough to see the Northern Lights. But most of the tourist companies, they don't offer any Northern Lights tour that early. But if you're traveling here by yourself, then by all means go outside when it's the darkest and test out your luck.
And staying with you for a second, Sævar, we were chatting earlier about when the actual peak of the solar cycle was going to take place, and you were mentioning possibly October this month. This year. And the fact that auroras are likely to be more prolonged, more intense in the winters following that. Could you shed a bit more light on that for us?
Yes, so you may probably have come across news articles, especially on social media, that have been saying that the 2024 will bring the brightest and the best auroras for years. We know also from decades of observations that the best aurora years are not during solar maximum, but shortly after, which means basically you're likelier to see the Northern Lights maybe a year or two after solar maximum, but that's the average, of course. So that's due to the fact that these phenomena on the sun called coronal holes, which are like openings in the sun's corona, they act sort of like a garden sprinkler. So it's rotating every 27 days or so. So if you have multiple coronal holes on the sun, which is usually indicative of less active sun, that means we can have auroras for a few nights in a row, for many, many weeks in a row even, or months. But we see this delay, so solar maximum is never the best year. It's usually always a little bit afterwards. So there's a little bit of a delay in the frequency of auroras. And that's all, like I said, due to the fact that the coronal holes are more stable on a more quiet sun than during solar maximum. Also, when you have these explosions on the sun called coronal mass ejections that caused the display you had over the UK in May, those are much more random and they're usually much more short-lived. So since it's acting like a garden sprinkler, you can have Northern Lights for many days in a row easily, and powerful geomagnetic storms.
Fascinating. Gosh, space science is just another thing altogether, isn't it? It's incredible.
I know. Thanks. It's never easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh. Cathy, can I come to you next? The most common question we're asked is, what is the best place or country or region to go to maximize your chances of seeing the aurora? Because there's so much choice, isn't there? And so much variety. What advice would you give someone, perhaps a first timer who's never seen the Northern Lights, but really, really wants to? What advice would you give them to help them make up their minds, do you think?
I think it's really important if you're booking a Northern Lights focused holiday that you think about what you're going to be doing during the day. And so Iceland, for example, excels in amazing scenery and extraordinary experiences right across the board. So it's a firm favourite for anyone who's interested in photography or just likes gazing at amazing landscapes. And Iceland's winter can be, it can be as winter anywhere. It can be quite severe, but they have a really good system of weather forecasting and of giving advice to travellers about road conditions and things like that. So a fly drive holiday doesn't need to be a daunting prospect, but if you want to take advantage of having someone there who's basically looking after you and making all the decisions about where to go according to what the weather is, then book a guided trip. And there's a great choice. I think you went through all the different options for Iceland. And so the scenery is always going to wow you. Even if you get a cloudy sky at night, you're not going to be able to see the Northern Lights if it's cloudy, but you'll still have had an amazing experience during the day. So I would seriously consider Iceland. If you're interested in specific activities, and I think you mentioned quite a few of them, then obviously dog sledging, snowmobiling, things like that, are very well covered in Scandinavia. And another personal favourite of mine is Greenland, but I mean it is a little bit hardcore. Though you can see the Northern Lights even at the end of August, as Sævar mentioned, close to the Arctic Circle in the east, very, very sparsely inhabited east of Iceland. So somewhere like Scoresby-Sund on one of the cruise ships gives you really good chances late in the season, so August, September time.
Oh, thanks, Cathy. That's good advice. Eric, can I ask you the same question? What advice you'd give a first timer on how to make up their mind on the huge choice of Northern Lights options?
I think, as mentioned, have a think about what else you'd like to do if you didn't see the Northern Lights. It is always a bonus. It's a huge bonus when you do eventually see them, but it's always good to consider what else you'd like to do so that you're not disappointed with the trip if the lights don't show. So that would be my top tip, and just to not give up on trying to see them. Like Cathy said, sleep when you're back, stay up and try and see the Northern Lights, and yeah, just do everything you can to maximize your chances.
Yeah, good advice. Staying with you, Eric, just sort of nailing down some more specific holiday ideas that people are asking about. Here's a question about what is the most luxurious way to try and experience the Northern Lights? Because there's quite a range of pretty special places to stay in Sweden, Iceland, or most of the destinations, aren't there?
Mm-hmm. Somewhere like the Arctic Retreat, which you mentioned in Sweden, is a very good option. It's a very small, personal place that you can stay. Great food. There's only 4 cabins there, so it's very, very personal, private tours. Sticking in that area, there's some very unique accommodation as well, like the Tree Hotel, which people might have seen on TV. But somewhere like the Arctic Retreat, where it's smaller, there's a lot of focus on the personal experience, and the service would definitely be somewhere I'd recommend.
Okay, thank you. Okay, lots of questions coming in about how to photograph the Northern Lights. Now, if you go to the Discover the World website and click on the blog, there's a piece there covering this in detail. Cathy, you're a great photographer. What are your photo tips?
Well, it's really interesting how aurora photography has changed so radically. And I would actually suggest that people, just buy themselves a good and fairly recent phone and smartphone, and you can get some incredible images with your smartphone. So you really don't need to do anything. Just put it on night mode and then shoot away. Stabilize it if you can. You can buy these little mini tripod things for your phones, and that will help to make the image sharp. But the technology inside these phones is so amazing nowadays that you can get really professional quality pictures, and you can also video the aurora as well with your phone, which is extraordinary. I'm also quite a fan of the old school photography, where you've got a tripod and a digital SLR and a remote shutter control and all the little gadgets that come with it. A wide angle lens, a slow exposure, not too slow, because you want to be able to capture the sharpness of the aurora if it's particularly fast moving. But it's fun, and I think doing selfies with the aurora has become my favorite thing, and taking photographs of my guests with the aurora behind, you can get some absolutely stunning images. Also trying to for keen photographers, trying to think about the foreground to your picture to make something interesting. And water is an obvious one, because you get lovely reflections, particularly if it's a still night. But also some mountains in the picture, or even a boat, or a nice little cute cottage with warm light streaming out can make the difference between an okay photo and a really stunning image.
Yeah, good advice. Yeah, I like that a lot. Sævar, you're a photographer too, are you? Do you take pictures of the aurora?
Yeah, try my best at least, and I've got some decent shots. Yes.
Yeah. Any tips?
Well, first and foremost, to enjoy the show, not look at the Northern Lights through the lens of the camera. But yeah, tripod, I tried to use a DSLR, an Icon one. It doesn't really matter what you use, of course, just a proper camera. Like Cathy says the cameras on the phones are extremely good nowadays, so it's literally just point and shoot. But if you have a small tripod and the photo adapter with you, you can take images with longer exposures, even if the northern lights are faint, because if they are faint, they become a little less colorful, of course. It's only when the storms are occurring that the lights that they become bright enough for these gorgeous colors to become visible. So yeah, but just enjoy the show first and foremost.
I think that's excellent advice. Yeah, just to take a few seconds at least to put your camera down and not look at it. Yes, I'll just add a little bit to that. Obviously, on that photo tour I'll be leading next autumn, next winter. We'll be looking at it in more detail, photographing Northern Lights. I use new mirrorless cameras and DSLRs less now. I'm swapping over to the mirrorless cameras because the sensor technology is just another level up from the DSLRs, and you can shoot at high ISOs, higher sensitivity with less noise, which means you can have shorter shutter speeds, you get less movement in the stars during long exposures. So aurora photography is being enabled to be much easier and more satisfying with mirrorless cameras. But yes, the general thing to do is to go for a wide angle lens, as Cathy says, with a big wide maximum aperture if you can, let in as much light as possible, keep everything rock solid on a tripod. And Cathy's advice on foreground interest, because it's very tempting when you see the Northern Lights to be so caught up in the magic of the moment and just sort of photograph the sky. And then of course you get back and you think, they're okay, but you know, it would have been so good to have included a bit of foreground interest and reflections, or a log cabin or a forest or a mountain or something. So yeah, think about the whole composition, I think is good advice. Oh, I could talk about photograph Northern Lights all night, but we have to move on. This question came in earlier, Eric. Northern Lights have a reputation for being romantic and perfect for couples, but they also make great family breaks. One viewer wants to know specifically about traveling with teenagers. Any suggestions for that?
Oh, there's lots of places that would tick boxes. I think it really depends on the family, but somewhere like Finland or Sweden, where you do have more activities like the snowmobiling, husky sledding, there's some places where there is the option to do some skiing as well, some downhill skiing. So you can combine that with some of the winter activities and having that chance of seeing the Northern Lights. I also think Iceland's a great place for teenagers, potentially more as a self-drive, where you have the freedom to explore at your own pace and really focus on the points of interest that suit your family. So things like waterfalls, you can do glacier hikes. It is possible to snowmobile in Iceland as well, but there's the wildlife aspect, like the whale watching, the recent eruption. Some people see that flying in, so that would be an amazing experience. There's super jeep tours that will take you through rivers. So there is something for everyone in Iceland. It's a great destination for anyone.
Thanks, Eric. Staying with Iceland then, I think perhaps we should talk about the volcanic eruptions a bit more, because there's been a fair bit of doom mongering, hasn't there, on the news and social media that might be putting people off visiting, which I think is pretty unfair. So I wonder, Sævar, if as a local, you could tell us what it's actually like, because Iceland is still very much open for business and safe to visit, isn't it?
Absolutely. If it wasn't for the news, I would hardly know that there's a volcanic eruption happening here just a few miles away from where I live. We can maybe see the glow on a dark night. But so Iceland is going through this volcanic episode, and it's perfectly fine. It's what we are kind of used to. It's of no dangers to humans whatsoever. It doesn't close the airport or anything like that. It's just beautiful. It's simply just beautiful. So the only volcanic eruptions that we are actually afraid of, if I may say so, it's the subglacial ones, and those are really rare. Those are the ones that can shut down airspaces, but there's nothing like that happening here. And like I said, it's just beautiful. It's no nuisance at all. And if you're flying in, if you're lucky enough, you might catch a glimpse of it. I remember in February when I took some people out to chase the Northern Lights, we did see some. But the highlight of the tour was seeing the volcanic volcano erupting there in the distance, because we can see the lava spilling out. So and it was just beautiful, and it's nothing to worry about. Absolutely nothing to worry about.
Thanks, Sævar. Eric, what would you say to someone concerned about visiting Iceland?
I would say that so far none of the trips that we've arranged have been disrupted. I think it's very easy to see the headlines in the news and worry. Something that Iceland, they have some of the best scientists in the world tracking the activity of the volcano. And if anything was to happen on the ground, then we would be able to assist and rearrange trips as needs be. But we haven't had to do that. The airport's been open the whole time. And if anything, there's been the opportunity to actually go and see it with a helicopter flight over the eruption site. So yeah, try not to worry. And if Iceland is somewhere you want to visit, this would be a great year, because it is quieter than previous years. So a lot of those wide open spaces, there's not going to be as many tourists as potentially previous years.
Yeah, if I may add one thing about the eruption. So it's amazing that the Blue Lagoon is literally on the top of the magma chamber of the volcano that's currently erupting, and the Blue Lagoon is still open. They had to evacuate when the eruption started, but they knew beforehand that it would start within like an hour or two, because we know exactly where the lava is flowing or the magma is, and where it's trying to squeeze its way up. And it's far away from where people live. So again, just beautiful and interesting.
Yes, well, I would certainly love to witness a volcanic eruption. And I know Discover the World have a volcano hotline which you can sign up to. And if there's an eruption that is safe and appropriate to visit, then they can arrange for you to visit there and go on hike if it's if it's an eruption that is accessible and safe, and the authorities allow it, or take a helicopter flight and fly over it and see it from afar. Yeah, quite extraordinary what's happening there, and it is very localized. It's very local fissure eruptions occurring across the peninsula there. Fascinating stuff. Cathy, let's come to you next. Also staying with Iceland. If you weren't allowed to pick the fabulous Snæfellsnes Peninsula in West Iceland, where you lead your orca tours, where would you go in Iceland for a Northern Lights holiday?
Well, now that you can fly direct from Manchester to Akureyri, I think that's where I'd head. And also that would be an ideal choice for anyone who's a bit volcano averse, because you'd be a nice long way away from all the action. The north of Iceland has suffered from, I suppose, less attention in terms of winter visitors. And so now that you've got this direct flight, it's easy to get there, and there's so many wonderful places to explore. Lake Mývatn is just over an hour's drive from Akureyri, and it's absolutely magical spot with bubbling hot springs and mud pools. They've got their own version of the Blue Lagoon up there, the Mývatn nature baths. You've got the town of Húsavík, where you can go whale watching, not in the depths of winter, but in the shoulder seasons. And then waterfalls. You've got the fabulous Goðafoss and Iceland's most powerful waterfall, Dettifoss, just a couple of hours drive from Akureyri. So I think there's plenty to keep you motivated and interested. And there's no big cities in the north of Iceland. Akureyri is a town of about 18,000 people, and it's nestled in a fjord. And so once you get away from the fjord, just drive over the hillside, and then you're going to have wonderful dark skies. So that would be my choice and my recommendation.
I think that's good advice. It's spectacular up there, and it's very different to other parts of Iceland. I think it's fascinating to go up there. Just going to move on now, because we're beginning to get near the end of our webinar. Eric, can I come to you next? A few questions from people interested in traveling this Christmas and New Year. What's the latest on availability? Is it too late?
It's not too late. It's a great year to look at going with the introduction of the new direct flights. Previously, you would have to fly to Helsinki and then change planes. So it's a great year to go. A lot of the trips that we offer around the Christmas and New Year time, they're much more personal trips. So if you're going with a family to do a Santa visit, it's not a huge commercial trip where you're queuing up with lots of other families. It's a case of heading out on a sled out through the forest to a pathway that's lit up by lanterns, and Santa's cabin's at the end of it. So it's a much more personal, exciting experience, not a case of queuing with lots of other people. So this year will be a great year to go. There is still some availability, and you can take advantage of those direct flights. So great time to look at going.
Brilliant. Staying with you, Eric. This is an interesting question. Someone said aurora chasing is becoming increasingly popular, and the packages sometimes involve staying at a boutique venue, doing the usual mixture of activities with people, often only having a cursory interest in the subject. That's their experience anyway. Does Discover the World offer something a bit more adventurous and off the beaten track? So something a little bit different to the, well, normal Northern Lights.
You could do, there are some Norwegian cruises, which are definitely an alternative way of trying to see the Northern Lights, and it does give you an excellent chance because when you're at sea, there's no light pollution at all. So that's a great option. A lot of the guided trips that we've touched on as well, they are quite often heavily focused on the Northern Lights, and it's people who do want the best possible chance of seeing them. So if you're looking for something different, then definitely a fjord cruise is something to consider. But if you want the assistance of an expert and maybe like-minded people, the guided tours would be a good option to consider.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. That's great. Just a couple more then before we round up. Here's one for you, Sævar. Are we likely to see the Northern Lights in the UK in years to come, as has been evidenced recently? And is this event due in any part to climate change? It's an interesting question.
Well, it has nothing to do with climate change because everything is happening roughly 100 kilometers altitude or so, which is, I don't know what, 65 miles high or so. So it's way above the weather part of the atmosphere. Yeah. So are we expecting more? Yeah, you can see it every now and then when the aurora storms or the geomagnetic storms are powerful, then definitely people in northern part of Scotland, of course, see it occasionally. And it wouldn't surprise me if you had some decent shows for the next few months or a year or so, if the sun continues to be this active. We're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah. That's what I like about it. It's just so, are you going to see it or are you not going to see it? It's fascinating stuff. I'm just going to round things up now just by coming to each of you and asking, what's on your Northern Lights holiday wish list? What is the one trip or the one place or the one experience that you just want to go and do to experience the aurora? Cathy, can we start with you?
Right, I'd like to go to northern Finland. I was lucky to go there some years ago, and it was just a really short visit. And I just love those immense tree-filled landscapes. The trees when they're way down with snow, like dancing ladies in flouncy skirts. It's just magical, that landscape. And I kind of got quite a thrill at being near to the Russian border. It's also a great place to see bears, but you're not going to be able to see them in winter because they'll be hibernating. But there is other wildlife, coming across a herd of reindeer when you're driving and they cross the road in front of you. That's a really magical experience. And elk or moose as well, quite often seen. So I'm a bit of a wildlife person. So I love those wide spaces where wildlife can, occasionally be seen, and it just adds an extra dimension to it.
Yeah, I think you've touched on two interesting points there. I think I love wildlife as well, and going off on just a quiet snowshoeing trip on your own in a spare afternoon from your log cabin and looking at the animal tracks, Arctic hares, or where a ptarmigan has sort of its wings have made a mark in the snow where it's taken off. And if you're lucky, you can see moose and caribou and things like that as well, or reindeer as well. It's fascinating. And you also mentioned you know, I think the other thing that I love, which we perhaps haven't touched on too much, is the cultural side of it, and the Sami people that live, you know, their indigenous homeland is northern parts of Lapland area. And a lot of Discover the World holidays include an opportunity for you to experience some of that culture, you know, meet some of the indigenous reindeer herders and find out about this incredible cycle of life they go through of moving their herds around the seasons. So yes, that would be mine. Experiencing more of the culture of those far northern lands. Sævar, what about you? What's on your wish list?
Well, it's actually here at home in Iceland, because on August 12th, 2026, we have a total solar eclipse occurring for the first time since 1954, and the first time from Reykjavik since 1433. And we won't have another opportunity until 2196. So August 12th, well, it's shortly after solar maximum. So we should have a fairly decent solar activity. So if a geomagnetic storm is occurring at the same time as the eclipse is happening, well, you might be really, really lucky to see the Northern Lights dancing when the sun is being eclipsed. So that's my hope. It's very unlikely, but I'm going to stay here and figure out if it's a possibility for sure.
Wow, that would be amazing. I hadn't thought of that, but yes, I don't know if it's on Discover the World's website yet, but I'm 100% certain that there will be a holiday to witness the solar eclipse that year. Eric, will there be?
There will be, yep. It shouldn't be too long until it's on sale. So
yeah, look out for that one. So yep. Eric, finally then, let's come to you and I mean, you must have seen so many Northern Lights experiences. What's on your wish list? Where would you love to go?
Well, I have a trip planned to Norway in September, which has been on my list for a while. It's heading up to the Senja Island and Lofoten Islands. So a self-drive in that area, and aiming to I'll be in the Lofoten Islands around the spring equinox, which is a really good time to see Northern Lights. So it's not the main focus, but fingers crossed.
Fantastic. Senja Island, I'm envious of you. Have a wonderful time. That sounds brilliant. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm afraid our time is pretty much up. I hope everyone joining us this evening has found it useful for planning your next Northern Lights holiday, whether you're itching to get away as soon as possible or planning a trip for the next year, next winter, or going on the next couple of years. As Sævar says, things are only going to get better. Don't forget that Discover the World's 100% guarantee gives you crucial financial security and total peace of mind. And if you have any questions about visiting any of the destinations that we've covered this evening, please do call Discover the World and chat to Eric or one of the team there, and they'll be able to start tailor-making a holiday to suit your exact requirements. I'd like to just finish by thanking so much Cathy, Sævar, and Eric, our brilliant panelists, for their words of wisdom. And a special thank you to you too for joining us this evening. Happy travels, safe travels, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks and bye-bye.